This is Bill Newman, WHMP.
Welcome to NPR, Northampton Poetry Radio, with erstwhile Poet Laureate Rich Michelson. Rich Michelson, the microphone is yours, and as is the pleasure of the introduction of our very special guest.
Well, thank you. Tomorrow is going to be a very special day for two reasons. One, to segue off your last segment, I get my second virus shot tomorrow. So that in itself is reason to celebrate. The second reason to celebrate is Diane Seuss, one of this country's premier poets, has a new book out, and she will be reading tomorrow evening, Tuesday, March 23rd at 7:30 p.m. at the Boutel Day Poetry Center at Smith College. Thanks to Matt Donovan for setting up this series. And you all get to listen in over Zoom. So go to the Smith College website, the Poetry Center, get a link, and you can listen in. Diane, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I'm a big fan. I love your work.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me and having me here this morning. I really appreciate it, Rich.
Well, the new book is called Frank Sonnets. I should note that your earlier books, you've been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, coming back to our area here. You won a Juniper Prize, and of course, yes, around here we're all big Juniper fans. And this book is amazing. First of all, it's getting great reviews everywhere. It's exuberant to a point that you almost forget it's about drugs and death, and in a sense, it's almost like a memoir in verse.
Yes.
So, I want to talk about it, but what I'd like to do is to start off with a poem, just to give people a sense of your words and how they work. So let's do that.
I'll start off with the first poem in Frank. It really gave me sort of the DNA roadmap to the rest of the book. I drove all the way to Cape Disappointment, but didn't have the energy to get out of the car. Rental, blue Ford Focus. I had to stop in a semi-public place to pee on the ground, just squatted there on the roadside. I don't know what's up with my bladder. I pee and then I have to pee and pee again. Instead of sightseeing, I climbed into the back seat of the car and took a nap. I'm a little like Frank O'Hara, without the handsome nose and penis in the New York school and Larry Rivers. Paid for a day pass at Cape Disappointment, thinking hard about that long drop from the lighthouse to the sea. Thought about going into the Ocean Medical Center for a checkup. But how do I explain this restless search for beauty or relief?
That was Diane Seuss reading from her new book, Frank Sonnets. Diane will be reading tomorrow at the Boutel Day Poetry Center at Smith College. So, Diane, without the book in front of them, a lot of people won't realize that was a sonnet, 14 lines, and this book is in fact all sonnets. We spoke just, I think, a week or two ago with Victoria Chang, who wrote a book, Obit, which every poem was in a form of almost that obit that you see in the newspaper, that long square box.
Yeah.
Now, this is a book of sonnets. How did you come upon that form, and how did you manage to put a whole life into sonnets?
Well, I knew I wanted to do something like a memoir, but a traditional memoir in prose didn't suit the way I think or experience life. So literally this opening poem gave me the map. I did drive to Cape Disappointment. I did climb into the back seat and take a nap. I did drive back and have to go wee wee on the road. And suddenly Frank O'Hara kind of stepped in. I'm narrating myself as I'm driving. And um, and I found myself when I got back to the place where I was staying, I wrote the lines down that I'd been thinking. And I found that it ended up as 14 lines. And lo and behold, there was kind of a volta, sort of a turn in the middle of it, and that I could arrange it. I could think about it in terms of a sonnet. And then, sort of eureka came to me. What if I tried writing a memoir in sonnets? And it turned out then that I was able to explore the far edge of what a sonnet could be. Um, Not just 14 lines, but well, could it include that turn? Could there be some kind of couplet, even if it's unrhymed? Or can I explore some rhyme, maybe not regular Shakespearean sonnet rhyme, but some kind of sound effects speaking to each other? And so, really, like all of my books, it came to me intuitively, and then it became a challenge. Is this something I can do? And through the process of writing the book, I I fell in love with the form and its possibilities.
Did you ever think of just abandoning it at any point, or how soon, once after this poem, did you say, this is what I'm going to do?
Oh, right away. And one thing that I love about it is that each page, each poem, holds the exact same amount of space. The lines are wider in some than others, but so what it did, it sort of equalized my experiences in my life. So from, looking at dead bird in the yard to the biggest questions of life and death and loss, all held those 14 lines, that same amount of space. And so as I began to think about what is a memoir, how does memory operate, it seemed like a really good way to tell a life without sort of grand arcs of high drama, 14 line increments holds everything. And so it pretty much, the minute I wrote that first poem, I felt that eureka, and I became obsessed.
I also love the way you actually refer in the writing of these poems to the writing of these poems.
Yeah.
So we feel like we're with you the whole time. At one point, you say, I was raised in a rectangle, aluminum trailer home, single mother. And, the poem looks like that. Another place I notice you write, the sonnet, like poverty, teaches you what you can do without.
Yes.
And that's just so poignant.
Yeah. I'm really glad you saw that and are referencing it. That I mean, poems have been such a part of my life since I was a kid. And yeah, I grew up in rural Michigan, single mother. My father died very young. Um, Tough economic times in the whole area where I was raised, and for us in particular. And so the process of the book, along with telling my life, was sort of bringing the sonnet to my people, to bringing my mother into the space of the sonnet, which we think of as sort of a high art artifact. How can it become matriarchal instead of patriarchal? How can it become low diction as well as high diction? So all of those things. So talking about the writing itself became part of the book's intimacy and roadmap.
It's certainly intimate. I want to make sure before we have to let you go that we get in another poem. You have a bunch of poems about your son in this book, which I
Yes.
found terribly moving, and open. The way you let us into drug addiction, the way you let us into attempted suicide. What I assume your son read these poems before. Did you ask for permission to publish them in the
Oh
book?
yes, yeah. He was part of the whole process, and he was on board from the beginning. I would send him poems before I included them, and also there's a whole segment of the book where it's us in conversation, and um, which they were almost transcriptive. So he was part of that. And then there's a fold out in the middle of the book that includes a big wide sonnet of mine, and then the back side is actually something he wrote, not in response to mine, but that tells his reality and his words. So I think he holds space in the book, that yes,
Well,
fully permitted.
let's read this sonnet, and then people can listen in tomorrow evening, Tuesday, March 23rd, 7:30 at the Boutel Day Poetry Center at Smith College. And you will. This is a taste, but you will get lots more of Diane Seuss. So we're going to end up with another incredible sonnet from this book.
Thank you so much in advance for having me. And this sonnet, it's a bit rugged, but just so people know, my son is doing okay. How do you stand being so virtuous? My only virtue is my lack of virtue. My only fear, my fear of a virtuous mob. Once my son sawed through his wrist with a pair of scissors, burst into my bedroom. I was sleeping a rare sleep, dreaming a rare dream, and he cried that he had tried to kill himself. Even as I called for help, he sawed away. He was messed up, drunk. He knocked the phone out of my hand. Maybe I slapped him. He says I slapped him, and I believe him. They sent him home after they stitched up his wrist. Wouldn't even keep him for a 24-hour hold. I made threats, pulled rank. I'm a social worker, I yelled. Oh, well then. Ha. He still got the scars. I saw them when we were playing categories. For a while, I hid everything sharp in the house, even pencils and paring knives. But you can't really live without sharp things. If I want them, I'll find them, he told me. I use the scissors now to cut my bangs. One clean slice straight across my forehead. Through virtue's flimsy yellow curtains, there are many rooms.
Diane Seuss reading Tuesday, March 23rd at 7:30 at the Boutel Day Poetry Center at Smith College. Thank you for joining us, Diane. This is an incredible book. I urge everyone to go out and purchase a copy, and urge you all to listen in tomorrow. You will not be disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks so much.
This is Bill Newman.